This is Nu-Trix, the Sim Guy, and today I'm talking about how to use the trigger of the TR-03 without having a TR-08 or a TR-09 or for any, without having any type of device that has a trigger dedicated out. So the question is coming from one of my subscribers, and it's a very good question because basically you should be able to do it. The question is, what type of sound do you use to do it? Because a trigger is basically a change of energy in the electricity on that cable that goes really rapidly from very low to very high. Now, the value of the low and the high and the value of the low and the high value depends on the company itself. There's many different, in the past there has been different type of trigger and value of triggers, but let's say today with Roland, pretty much a standard for a Euro rack they can use, so it should work with most of the things you find today. But you still need to understand that in the case of a sequencer, the trigger has to be really quick to go high and low. If it goes high quickly and then dies out slowly, it's not good for a trigger for a sequencer. It might be a good trigger that can be used like a gate to control the length of a note being played, but that's not what we want to do here. In the case of the TB-03, what we want to be able to do is to trigger each steps of the sequence. And that's really important. So if you want to be able to trigger each step separately, there needs to be a separate trigger for each step. So the first one needs to stop before the second one starts. So you really want to have very short sounds. Now, let's listen to what a trigger sounds so you know what to expect and what it should sound like. I'm going to put a headphone for this, and I'm going to take the output of the TR-08. Whoops, it's not long enough. Plug into this and listen to that sound. That's the trigger. Yeah, deet, deet, deet. So one of the easiest ways to do is basically sample this. I'll give you a couple of moments now. Sample that sound, more space between them. Sample that sound, put in the sampler, or even in your DAW, in Logic, Live, whatever you have. Put it in a drum machine type of trigger and dedicate that sound to one output of your sound card. If you have more than two, hopefully, let's say you've got the output number 4 becomes a trigger out because you're sending a very quick sound going up and down. That's your trigger. And then you send that sound straight into the trigger input of your baseline TB-03, and you have a trigger triggering the sequence of the TB. And voila, you use your live beatbox samplers, whatever you want, to actually control this. So that's an example. Now, if you don't have a DAW, if you don't want to use a DAW, or you have something, I've got another example, I have something like the circuit. You might try to fake that sound. Now, in the case of the circuit, it actually can use samples. So you could, again, sample that sound, plug in that into that, and then press play. Now, the problem with the circuit is it's only stereo out, so right away, it means that you have one out dedicated to being the trigger out, and the other out is mono. So, might not be the best device for this, but for the example, I'll use it. So, I will unhook this, and we'll play just the bass line alone. So that's the original bass line. If I use the TR-08, I press play. Plays the same sequence. Pull it out, no difference. So it's really, if I then play with the beat, I can create a new sequence out of it. What this is supposed to be. Okay. Stop this. Now I'm going to use from the circuit. I'm going to use the hi-hat. That sound. I already did tweak it a little bit, so it's going to be higher because usually it's lower. Put higher, and it's longer, so I put it shorter, and put some distortion in it, so it's going to be louder. And I'm going to take the output and send one of the output in mono into the trigger in. If I put it lower in volume, it doesn't react. Now the question is, you see, when it's longer, it doesn't understand when the first one stopped and the other one. When it becomes shorter, now it hears the differences. And if it's too low in volume, it doesn't react. So you want something short. This sound seems to be reacting the right way. Then again, I go back to pattern. I can start my sound, my beat. So if you have a beatbox or any type of instrument that can generate the right amount of energy to go really quickly from low energy to loud, and it goes and then go back to zero or almost, it can be used as a trigger. Now you might need to tweak it to see if it does the reaction you want, but basically any sound that is very fast and slow, then again, you might want to have, if you're triggering something else, like triggering a sound, like on a keyboard, like for the trigger in can be used, or the trigger could be used like a gate, so then the length is useful. But in the case of a sequencer, this is the sequence we're triggering, we don't want a length. You want it to be short, 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 so when the second step starts, it knows that the first one stopped. You know, it's really important. If not, you'll have some weird stuff. So that's it. I hope it's actually helpful and gives you ideas on how to use it. And if you have any other tips you can actually use for trigger, or if you have any other way to tweak it, or if you have an example of how you use it, feel free to put the links in the comments below. And I hope this helps you guys. Cheers.